Every peace deal between America and Iran has collapsed. Every ceasefire has stalled. Every negotiating table has produced nothing. And the explanation you've been given, sanctions, naval blockades, diplomatic conditions, is true. But it is not the whole truth. The real reason every deal dies has nothing to do with the diplomats you see on television. It has everything to do with three men whose names you have almost certainly never heard. And once you understand who they are, everything happening right now will suddenly make complete sense. Stay with me, because this one will change how you see this entire war. Major General Ahmad Vahidi, Major General Ali Abdullahi Ali Abadi, Major General Mohammad Bagher Zolgadar. These three men are not on any negotiating roster. They do not appear at press conferences. They give no interviews to Western media. They hold no titles that trend on social media. And yet, as of April 2026, they are the actual decision-making authority inside the Islamic Republic of Iran. Not elected President Masoud Pezeshkian, not Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who has been sitting across from American envoys in Islamabad, and who the Trump administration has been treating as its primary interlocutor. Not Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who gives the statements that appear in every Western headline. Three IRGC generals running everything from the shadows. If that sounds like something out of a political thriller, keep watching, because the documented evidence is more disturbing than any fiction. To understand how this happened, you need to go back to February 28, 2026. That is the day Operation Epic Fury killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, and with him, it eliminated or incapacitated a significant portion of the inner circle that had surrounded him for decades. The IRGC's two previous commanders, Hussein Salami and Mohammad Pakpour, were both killed in the early weeks of the war. Senior figures across the network of advisors and enforcers around the supreme leader were eliminated. What should have been a decapitation of Iran's power structure was not, because former security chief Ali Larijani, himself subsequently assassinated, had already restructured the IRGC into autonomous regional headquarters specifically designed to operate without central civilian leadership. The center was built to be non-essential, so when Khamenei died, the IRGC did not collapse. It activated. Standing orders executed. Operational plans launched. The network kept moving, not because the center held, but because the center had been engineered to be replaceable. And into that vacuum walked the triangle. Mujtaba Khamenei was selected as the new supreme leader on March 8, 2026, by the Assembly of Experts, reportedly under direct pressure from Vahidi and senior IRGC commanders. But here is the detail that should stop you cold. Mujtaba has not made a single public appearance since his selection. His first official statement was read by a narrator, not delivered by him. A cardboard cutout of him appeared at a regime rally, an image that circulated internationally and immediately raised the question that intelligence agencies are still trying to answer. Is the new supreme leader alive, conscious, and capable of governing? CIA and Mossad assessments have stated they cannot confirm Mujtaba is giving orders. Israel's Channel 14, citing a source close to the IRGC, reported that Vahidi is the only official with direct access to the hospitalized supreme leader. Think about what that means. In Iran's constitutional system, no policy commitment is binding without the supreme leader's authorization. And the only man who can reach the supreme leader is Vahidi. Every deal, every ceasefire, every concession, it all runs through one general. One man who has spent his entire career building the infrastructure of Iranian power projection and who has zero institutional interest in dismantling any of it. Who is Ahmad Vahidi? He is not a diplomat. He is not a bureaucrat. He is the man who served as the IRGC's first Quds Force commander between 1988 and 1997, before Qasem Soleimani, before the Quds Force became the internationally recognized instrument of Iranian regional power that it is today. Vahidi built that institution from scratch. He established the networks, the financial flows, the relationship with Hezbollah, the infrastructure of Iranian extraterritorial power that now extends from Lebanon through Syria, through Iraq, through Yemen, into parts of Latin America. He built all of it. He also carries an Interpol Red Notice issued in 1997 when Argentine prosecutors sought him for his alleged role in the 1994 bombing of the AMIA Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, a car bomb that killed 85 people and wounded more than 300, the deadliest terrorist attack in Argentine history. Vahidi has never faced a court. He went on to become Iran's defense minister, then interior minister, serving in that role during the brutal crackdown on protesters following the death of Mahsa Amini in 2022, when IRGC and government forces killed hundreds of Iranians who had taken to the streets. Analysts Khosra Arabi and Saeed Golkar described him in The Telegraph as an absolutist who remained in the shadows because he is the key structural element whose survival is essential to the system's continuity. Men like Vahidi do not appear at press conferences. They make the decisions that the visible figures announce. Mohammad Bagher Zolgadar is now the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, the most powerful security coordination body in Iran's government. He has been placed under UN sanctions. He is a member of the old guard of the IRGC, a co-founder of the organization that eventually evolved into the Quds Force, and a man with documented ties to radical groups responsible for acid attacks against women in Isfahan used to suppress Iranian civilians. He has no diplomatic experience. That last fact is not incidental. It is the point. When Vahidi forced Zolgadar's appointment over the explicit objections of Ghalibaf and Arachi, the message was precise. The SNSC, the body that formally coordinates Iran's security, intelligence, and foreign policy, would now be run by a loyalist with no diplomatic instincts, no diplomatic language, and no diplomatic interest. And Ali Abdullahi Ali Abadi commands Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, the supreme operational military command running Iran's entire war effort. He personally received Pakistan's Field Marshal Asim Munir during his Tehran visit, meaning even Pakistan, the one country Iran trusts as a mediator, had to go through him rather than through any civilian official. He issued the public retaliation warning after the Tuska seizure. He is the man who translates the Triangle's political decisions into military actions. Now here is where it gets specific. And specific is where this story stops being analysis and starts being evidence. When Foreign Minister Arachi announced that the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened to commercial shipping, a significant diplomatic signal, the beginning of the conditions Iran had publicly demanded for talks to proceed, the IRGC declared the strait closed again the very next day. The Foreign Minister of Iran made an announcement. The IRGC overruled him, on the record, publicly. A foreign minister who cannot make policy, who can only announce decisions the IRGC has already approved and can have reversed within 24 hours. That is not a diplomatic structure. That is a veto machine with a civilian face. Iran International reported that as the Iranian negotiating team was preparing to depart for the second round of Islamabad talks, a message arrived from a circle close to Khamenei's office prohibiting them from discussing nuclear issues. The team that J.D. Vance had sat across from for 21 hours. The team that produced the 10-point framework the ceasefire was nominally built on. They were being sent to Pakistan, prohibited from discussing the primary issue the United States needed to address. They were not negotiators. They were diplomatic props. And Vahidi went further still. He attempted to insert Zolgadar directly into the Iranian negotiating team. Ghalibaf and Arachi objected specifically on the grounds of his lack of diplomatic experience. The Institute for the Study of War assessed that this reflected Vahidi's control over IRGC military elements, which has enabled him to wield significant authority over decision-making compared to all other senior regime leaders. Vahidi was not trying to let the negotiations fail. He was trying to staff them with his own loyalists to ensure they failed on his terms. A source close to the IRGC who spoke to Israel's Channel 14 stated the strategic logic with startling directness. Vahidi is taking a positive stance toward not continuing the negotiations. From his perspective, there is no need to rush into a deal. He believes Trump will eventually back down. He does not believe the threats. That single paragraph is the complete explanation for why every peace framework has collapsed. The triangle has made a calculation. American political patience is finite. IRGC institutional endurance is not. The blockade costs Iran real economic damage daily. But the IRGC has survived the Shah, the Iran-Iraq War, 40 years of U.S. sanctions, the Green Movement, the Masa Amini protests, and 2 months of direct military conflict. It believes it can survive this. And so the triangle does not argue with Ghalibaf and Arachi. It does not debate them. It blocks them. Vahidi controls access to the supreme leader. He controls the SNSC through Zolgadar. He controls military operations through Abdullahi. He can prohibit the negotiating team from discussing nuclear issues. He can reverse the foreign minister's announcements within 24 hours. He can insert loyalists into delegations and exclude pragmatist voices from every decision that actually matters. The ISW assessment of the situation is precise. The United States is negotiating with a divided committee of hardliners and pragmatists that lacks a cohesive, unified position. What that clinical language means in practice is this. The pragmatists, Ghalibaf, Arachi, Pezeshkian, have the diplomatic vocabulary, the foreign policy experience, and the genuine interest in some form of resolution. They are the people at the tables. They are the people taking the calls. They are the people who appeared in Islamabad for 21 hours and produced a framework. And they have zero authority to close any deal the triangle opposes. Trump posted on Truth Social with the directness that his platform permits. If there are two factions in Iran, one that wants a deal and one that doesn't, let's kill the ones that don't want a deal. That is not policy, but it is a precise description of the power structure. Two factions, incompatible interests, one holding the guns, the jails, and the exclusive access to the supreme leader, one holding the press conferences and the diplomatic vocabulary, and no authority to conclude anything. The ceasefire extension Trump announced on April 21st described Iran as seriously fractured.
That is accurate. What the language of diplomacy cannot quite bring itself to say is that in a fractured government, the faction with the guns does not need to convince the other faction. It simply needs to prevent the other faction from closing any deal it opposes. The triangle is not losing an argument, it is blocking a process. And there is a difference. And that difference is why every peace deal dies at the ceiling the triangle sets. The ceasefire has been extended. It has not been resolved. The three generals who quietly took control of Iran are still in the room that no Western negotiator, no Pakistani mediator, and no Saudi back channel has ever entered, making every decision that determines whether a deal is possible at all. And today, right now, that ceiling has not moved. If you've made it this far, drop one word in the comments. Deal or no deal? Tell me what you think happens next. Do the pragmatists eventually break through, or does the triangle hold? Because this story is not over, and we're going to be covering every development on this daily. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss tomorrow's update, because the next move in this standoff could come at any moment. If you want to understand what's really happening behind the headlines, not the diplomatic language, not the press conference version, but the actual power structure driving these decisions, then subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it means you won't miss a single update when this story moves.